So in this week's video, I am in Białowieża Forest, and this is a forest on the, let's say, very eastern point of Poland, actually along the border of Belarus. And this is one of the most significant forests in Europe because it's primeval. It's very old. It's been protected in law on and off since the 14th century. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about this place, show you some of the sites that we've been to, show you some animals, and I hope you enjoy. It's a bit of a different part of Poland to explore, so should be interesting for you, so stay tuned. Dzień dobry and welcome to A Brit in Poland. This channel is going to bring you everything you need to know about Poland. I am exploring the country, bringing you the history, trying to tell you about the culture and show you what it is really like to live here. So feel free to check out my other media, Instagram, Facebook, and I will share links to those in the comments. I also have a website, www.britinpoland.com, where I collate my videos for easy to view manner. Also, you are welcome to contribute to my efforts through Patronite or Patreon, and all descriptions are available below the video. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and please come back for more by subscribing, liking, or commenting. Thank you very much. Do zobaczenia. As usual, a thank you to my Patreon and Patronite patrons. You make my life easier. So, Białowieża is in the, let's say, northeast of Poland, right along the border of Belarus. And it was about, 3.5, 4 hours drive from Warsaw. We had a private coach to take us there. So we had some lovely scenic views of the Polish countryside on the way. Not quite the primeval forest we're going to, but still very nice. And we hired this bus, which was German-made, I believe. Of course, taking a stop at the petrol station and getting a flat tire on the way to make the journey just that little bit more interesting. But at least it gave us a nice view of this church, though I'm not entirely sure which village we were in. But after about 30 minutes of the drivers changing the tire, we managed to get back on the road, so we didn't lose too much time. And getting to the car park, we see a bit of commercialism, but never mind. So this is like the, let's say, the main office where you can buy tickets, but we bought tickets online beforehand to save time. And the first place we went to was basically a kind of an animal reserve. And the cool thing about this, it's basically a zoo, but it's a zoo that contains animals from the local region. So you get a kind of a real taste. So you have, these horses, for example, that were just, casually grazing in the field. Unfortunately, it started out as quite a rainy day, which perhaps wasn't ideal. Here's a bison and another bison, and these were actually pretty endangered, and they've been reintroduced to the area. And you have several hundred living in the wild in the protected reserve, which we will get to later. Here are some deer. I can't tell you the specific breed because I'm not a zoologist. Here's a nice picture of the rain, and you see the bison there taking shelter, as bison do. This was a moose, and at first it looks like a big donkey from behind, but it was pretty cool. I don't know if I've actually seen this species before, so this was nice for me to see for the first time. Lovely pond in its enclosure. And this was a surprise. Oh, here are Dzika, or wild boar. You tend to see them a lot in Poland, especially in cities, crossing tram lines and stopping traffic. But yeah, this little park was a nice little bonus. It wasn't the main point of the journey, but it's where we started out. And next we headed to this place, Bison Ribs, I think is the translation. But Jubra, basically, a special nature trail located in the forest.
and the first forest nature trail in Poland, actually, which was marked out in the 1970s by the design of Jacek Wyszmuluk and his wife Barbara Ewer. It's about 2.7 kilometers long, so it was a nice little walk. There are quite a few like wooden footbridges and dikes winding through the wetland area of the forest and the former meadows of the valley of the Narewka River. The name comes from the boards or trunks resembling ribs, arranged in places at fairly wide intervals. And it was just let's say, a nice introduction to the journey that we were facing. And luckily the rain had more or less stopped, but we had umbrellas at the ready, just in case. And yeah, it leads through these kind of older ash forests, and it kind of presents the biodiversity of the habitat. And yeah, it was a pleasant walk. We could hear frogs, we could see all kinds of interesting trees and fungi. Let's say this was a precursor to what we were going to face very soon. And yeah, we kind of reached the beginning of the trail, which was like the end of the trail for us. But yeah, zebra, zebra. Now, this is the actual village of Białowieża. I mean, the area is actually inhabited since like the 5th century or BC or something like that. So it's one of like the oldest inhabited areas of the region. And we didn't get to spend a lot of time in this village. We mainly just stopped here for lunch, but you get a bit of a taste of the, let's say, the local architecture. You know, so you get to see kind of authentic old style Poland and some lovely, lovely wooden buildings. You know, the kind of thing that you only really see when you get out of the big cities in Poland. So it was a nice little treat. But yeah, the village itself, it's not very big. I think it has a population of about 8,000, and most of those are actually scientists who are there to study the forest. So it was, yeah, we mainly encountered, like, let's say, restaurants and hotels as like the significant features. I mean, we didn't get to see the whole village, unfortunately. I wouldn't have minded like another hour or two to get a little bit further, because I think there are a few monuments and things that were cool. But we stopped for lunch and had a nice, let's say, traditional Polish meal. We went with a set menu, which was about 60 zloty, which isn't bad for 3 courses. And of course, we encountered a few souvenir points on our way. So this is well, it's the national park, but it's not, let's say, the significant part of the area. Again, more kind of themed restaurants. The bison is a particularly strong theme in this part of the world. And yeah, so yeah, the village actually dates back to like the 13th century, and it was on the border of the duchies of Masovia, Volhynia, Lithuania, and Jotvingian. And you saw Tatar, Teutonic, and later Lithuanian invasions. So it was quite an active place. From the 14th century, there was like a permanent hunting lodge of the court of Lithuanian princes there. And now you just see beautiful areas. Of course, it was under Russian rule in the 18th century up until the early 20th century during the third partition of Poland. And it was hit quite bad. Well, it was hit during the war by the Germans, who occupied this area during World War II. Now we actually get to the proper private nature reserve, and this you can only go in there with a guide. You see some cranes, just to highlight a bit of extra nature. But yeah, so you have to go into this reserve by guide, so you have to book ahead. We paid about 40 zloty each, but that was a group of 10 people, so I'm assuming the cost is about 400 zloty for an English-speaking guide. And the guide we had was actually very, very knowledgeable. She was very enthusiastic. Every single bird, every single piece of moss, every single tree, virtually every bit of fungi, she was more than happy to tell us about its life story. So here she is, Joanna, I believe, with our tour group. And what you notice about this forest is it is very dense and very diverse. It's, I think, about 105 kilometers in square meters in terms of the size. And this, of course, is like the Polish part. In Belarus, I think you have 216,000 hectares or something like that. So it's pretty big forest. And the reason it is kind of called Europe's oldest forest is pretty much it's been preserved. Now, apparently in like the 13th century, I don't think it had like official preservation, but the only traffic that went through this area was by the river. Basically, people wouldn't go over the land, so it didn't suffer like the mass deforestation that you see in a lot of Europe, especially after the war, where wood was just churned up for resources left, right and centre. And yeah, the tour we took was about 3 hours. And one of the reasons, well, there are a few reasons you go with the guides. One, so you don't get lost, because you're only supposed to go down certain, let's say, tourist designated paths. And secondly, it's just to make sure you don't do anything stupid. This area is like, technically we weren't meant to kill the many thousands of mosquitoes that attacked us. I remember a friend's commenting they must be used to large, slow-moving animals because they were not afraid of us. And even the people with repellent couldn't fight them away. So I ended up with a lot of bites, which was not ideal. So if you come to this place, do expect to be bitten. But yeah, there are a lot of like dead trees, which you would not normally see out in nature because, of course, they would be felled, and they will only deliberately, fell any kind of dead wood in this landscape if it absolutely had to go, because about 12,000 animals or something rely on the, animals, I say, organisms rely on the dead trees. And you have lots of, I think, over 20 species of trees, which again is something rather special in Poland, because a lot of the forests you see in this country are maybe 100 or so years old. And that's because, of course, a lot of them have been cut down, whether it be by, say, the Russian occupation or during the war or whatever. So a lot of what you see as woodland in Poland is relatively new. So this area that was protected basically because it was like it started off as like a hunting reserve for these Lithuanian dukes, and kind of remained pretty much protected ever since. So that's one of the things that makes this special, and one of the things that makes it so kind of worthy of note. We didn't really see any animals except for the odd frog or snail and the thousands of mosquitoes here, because the animals are kind of used to the humans and the area of the forest that they walk around. So they run and they hide from humans, which I don't blame them for, given our history. Actually, like the bison here were pretty much wiped out, I think, particularly by the German army during the war. And it was like in the 1920s that they were reintroduced. And the area they were reintroduced from subsequently they became extinct in. And there are something like is it over 600 now that kind of run wild in the kind of nature reserve. But yeah, so we finally got out after a long walk and a lot of bites. and we took a little stroll through the park where you have the museum, which sadly we didn't have time to stop into. But it was a lovely day out, and yeah, I wish we'd had maybe another day to see more of the village and maybe explore some of the other areas. It was a nice Orthodox church of a rather unique design that we happened to catch on the way out. But all in all, it was a long day, a tiring day. We left at 8 in the morning, didn't get back to like 1 a.m. But it was beautiful. But thank you very much for watching. Please enjoy more of Poland to come. Do zobaczenia.